Hey everybody, welcome to Bold TV. I'm Carrie Sheffield, the founder of Bold TV, and our special guest today is the Reverend Anthony Thompson. He's the author of this new awesome book, which you all need to check out, called Called to Forgive. It is a truly amazing story. Tell us, in your words, why did you write this book?
Well, I wrote that book because while I was at the bond hearing, telling Dylan I forgive him, God put another mission in my mind, and the mission was to spread the gospel of forgiveness. And so in doing so, of course, I didn't answer the call right away. He and I had a long, maybe a couple of months of talking about it. And then when I answered the call, that's the first thing that came to my name, Called to Forgive, because I realized that he prepared me for this many years ago, for this time, the tragedy, this time being able to forgive Dylan. And this was at this time when I answered that call, so Call to Forgive was appropriate.
So as a reminder to our viewers, he mentioned Dylan Roof. Dylan Roof is the white supremacist who murdered Anthony's wife in the shooting that killed 9 people in Charleston, South Carolina in 2015. And as the pastor mentioned, he and several other family members immediately, 2 days after the shooting, forgave the shooter in hearing, which sent a jolt around the world. And even then, President Obama, when he came down for the funeral, that was when he broke into amazing grace, because it really was an act of forgiveness and grace on the part of you all that you were able to forgive.
It was.
And I noticed in your book, you talk about our culture and how your behavior was really countercultural to the prominent culture in today's world. Talk about what's happening in our culture now and why you're choosing to go against it.
Go against our culture. Well, what's happening in our culture today is that there's a lot of violence. A lot of violence. People are angry, carrying a lot of burdens because someone did them wrong. And instead of really talking about it or trying to resolve the problem with whoever the problem is, they just pick people at random, start shooting for no reason, people they don't even know. And so I find it hard to believe that it's hard for people to forgive, or hard for people to try to get over the fact that whoever did them wrong, to talk with that person rather than to find somebody, like a group of people at Emmanuel Church, just come killed because of the color of their skin. It's just been kind of hard trying to figure out where their young minds are today.
Well, and this shooter said afterward that he felt no sorrow, he felt no apology, and in fact, he specifically targeted this church in the South, in Charleston, specifically because it was the home of slavery, or one of the largest ports for slavery. And obviously the South has a deep history of segregation and Jim Crow, and the shooter said that he was trying to spark a race riot and a race war by specifically targeting Black Americans.
Yes.
So he had a much broader political agenda by walking into that church, and you clearly foiled that agenda.
Oh yes, we certainly did, because like you said, he wanted to start a race war. Now, it could have been a race war, and we decided to give in and hate him, get angry with him, and burn up our city, or just get mad at every white person we came in contact with. But of course, it wasn't in our heart to do that. At least it wasn't in my heart to do that as well. I had a divine intervention from God himself telling me to forgive Dylan. I've experienced racism in my job, when I was a probation agent with the South Carolina Department of Probation and Parole. And there was a time when I was a rebel, a rebel with a cause, hating.
Malcolm X?
Sort of Malcolm X, yeah. Hating on white people, want to know why, they feel the way they feel towards me being a Black person, why I couldn't get promoted, why you didn't want to give me this job. And so.
And this was what years?
This was in the 1970s, yeah. So I'll say 79 through maybe the 80s.
Got it. So you had anger. Yeah. You had anger when you were younger.
I was very angry, very angry. I was so angry, I was labeled as a rebel on my job. Wherever I went, if I went to our headquarters in Columbia, I tell them my name, they're like, yeah, we know who you are. You know? Yeah, so it's
Well, that's
like,
the other Anthony Thompson.
yeah, the other Anthony Thompson. I mean, and I was just not going to, see, I seen a lot of things that my parents went through and dealing with white people, insurance man, the bill collectors, and it just wasn't, and I was just waiting for my chance. And when I got my chance, I just went out. I just went after them. You know, I didn't tolerate, you know, any kind of racism on the job, even though it happened. I would voice my opinion, I mean, very loud. My thing was, there's a black and white situation going on in here. Then one day, I had a supervisor who hired me and promoted me to be supervisor after I, you know, made a disturbance about black and white in the office. And he explained to me he wasn't that way. He said, but if he promote me, when he promote me, the people in the office, which was of his color, white, would call him a nigger lover, which they did. You know, and I was surprised to even know that would happen. And so when he left, you know, they had the opportunity to come at me. And this is when I experienced more racism than I ever could before. They tried everything they could to get me fired. And of course, like I said, I was rebel with the cause, and I fought back. I fought back with the manual. I fought back with an attorney. I fought back with my voice. Nothing worked. And then one day God came and said, listen, you need to change your ways. And I was like, my ways? They need to change their ways. And of course, I listened, and I did.
So how did you change?
Yeah, well, I stopped being a rebel. You know, I stopped being loud. I stopped talking about black and white. You know, when somebody came and pushed the right button as they thought, you know, to try to keep me from being promoted or try to write me up just for the color of my skin, you know, I just literally just didn't react the same way I did before. You know, I didn't voice my opinion. I was like, go ahead, you know, that's what you want to do, write me up. And they couldn't understand this abrupt change, you know, from the way I used to be. And it was what God wanted me to do, so I just did it. And I found, and from doing it, okay, I retired. And after I retired from 27 years, they called me to come back 2 years. The people who were trying to get me fired, they ended up getting fired or resigning for whatever reason. And I started getting promoted, you know, just with ease. And it was all because of God intervening in my life, and of course me listening and obeying. And I forgave them. You know.
And so that's so interesting, because it certainly reminds me of things that Dr. Martin Luther King would say about returning hatred with love and returning violence with nonviolence.
Yeah.
And that the more aggression you have, meeting it with further aggression actually has the opposite effect. What do you say to people who say, well, that's the coward's way, or that's not standing up for yourself, or that's letting yourself get pushed around?
Well, you're not really letting yourself get pushed around. You're really relieving yourself of the burden that you were carrying that you didn't have to carry, that burden of hate and anger, being angry at somebody because they dislike you or treat you different because of the color of your skin. You know, I found out that, you know, like my father used to tell me a long time ago, that's their problem. You know, that's the way they want to feel about me. You know, okay, feel that way about me, but I do not feel that way about myself. And I'm not going to hate you, because the more I hate you, the worse my life is going to get. And I got tired of my life just going downhill. I wanted my life to change. And when God intervened and showed me the way to do it, and I saw the changes that was coming into my life just from forgiving and not responding back in a negative way or hating them, I found life to be more comfortable. You know.
So what was your toolbox to get there? Because I can imagine if you're going in every day to the workplace and you're surrounded by it, I mean, that's a lot easier if it's some random person who yells something at you on the street versus you're going in every day and it's people who are surrounding you. What's the day-to-day management to get past that?
Well, every day, you know, I'm not there now, but when I was, every day was a prayer day. I mean, every day going in was a prayer. Every day when I got there was a prayer. And every time they came after me, you know, if they came to me the wrong way and I knew it wasn't according to the manual or according to our job discipline, of course I would, you know, fight them back with that, you know. But I never got harsh. I never hated them anymore. And matter of fact, I had one young lady came up to me one day and asked me to forgive her for what she had done during these times when I was experiencing racial discrimination in the office. And I told her, I forgave you a long time ago. And so, which each, you know, every step, every day, you know, it was as an act of forgiveness, of forgiving somebody, or saying, you know, hey, that's cool, I can roll with that. All these were just acts of forgiveness without actually saying it all the time. And this is what really brought me through, just being able to take whatever people had to bring, to me for my different culture, the color of my skin, the way I presented myself. I just accepted me for who I was.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that everything in your life had prepared you for this moment, for
Mm-hmm.
what happened in the book with your wife. So I would say that based on what you're saying, that experience in your younger days, would you say that prepared you for later on?
Yes, that was a part of it, because even growing up, not being able to defend myself and watching my parents, I've seen my dad, he was in the Navy. I saw where he was, in the Navy, black men could only become either a cook or a steward. And then there came a point in life when they can promote to being a chief, of which, he took the test and he passed it several times, but several times he was overlooked because of the color of his skin. And I would get upset, but I would hear my parents talking about it, and my father would always, but the white friends who they had, who, were part of the Navy with them, and those who lived around us, they just never got angry at these people. It was like, without saying forgiving them, it was like, okay, I understand what's going on, I can take this. I remember asking my mom one time about the march, the Martin Luther King March, because she was engaged in the march when he came to Charleston, and she was locked up, and she came back, and I said, Mom, how could you do that and don't fight these people back? And she said, oh no, we don't fight back. She said, that's the wrong thing to do. We just forgive them and we keep on marching. And that was hard for me to understand at that time, because I was like, no way, if that was me, I would be fighting back. But things like that happened in my life, things that my parents exemplified, going through that, were things that I learned. I didn't like it. And later on, it became a part of me as I grew older. And then having to deal with, like I said, on my job with that, and going through that, and dealing with people at least for 5 years, just literally, I would literally badger people, like, get out of my face, you white hunky or whatever. I was just that bad. And then it came to a point where, like I said, God intervened. I just stopped, I found life to be much better now. Now, in Charleston being a place where we're very hospitable people, but there was always undertone of racism. That was hard to deal with, because even when I wasn't in the workplace, when I was younger playing outside, I experienced the same thing. As a matter of fact, being that my father was in the Navy, me being a Navy brat, I didn't really see that until we kind of settled down in Charleston. I didn't see no racism, anything, because in the armed services, everybody saw everybody as whoever. And then one day we were going to the movies, some white guys came by in the car and threw bottles and spit and everything. And I still was like, well, God, what happened? And my cousins looked at me and said, and they ran him down, like ready to, fight him and kill him. And I'm standing right there. They came back and said, what happened here? Why you didn't try to help us? I said, for what? Because I didn't understand what really was going on, but.
Well, yeah, no, certainly racism is something that is taught.
Yeah.
But and the reverse, that we can teach people to look past race, or that we can teach people to racially integrate, or to live together in harmony. That's something that can be taught as well. What's been your response as you've told your story to the country when it comes to the story of forgiveness?
Well, some people, particularly my own race, they say I have the slave mentality. I'm like, really? The slave mentality about just kind of, the forgiveness part is like saying I'm going through this sort of to protect myself, like slaves did when their masters told them something, and they just kind of repress their anger. And so they say, I'm repressing my anger, I've got the slave mentality. And I'm like, no, really? Why would I have a slave mentality? I'm not a slave. So I don't have to try to be nice to a white person thinking they're going to do some harm to me. So that's out of the question. Some people said, well, it was, it was a cowardly act because Dylan didn't accept my forgiveness. And I'm like, well, he doesn't have to accept my forgiveness because, first of all, the forgiveness wasn't for Dylan, it was for me. When I told Dylan, I forgive you, I'm the one who experienced the peace. I mean, I experienced that peace right away. And if Dylan wants peace, he's got to do the same thing I did. He's got to ask forgiveness from God. Then if he wants to ask me for forgiveness, I've forgiven him already. But it doesn't have anything to do with somebody responding. The offender doesn't have to respond and say, yeah, I accept your forgiveness for that person to be forgiven. And so those are things.
Or to ask for forgiveness.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have to ask me. If he wants to, of course I already forgave him, but the point being is that when I said I forgive you, what people need to understand is that the forgiveness is for the victim, not for the offender. The offender, he or she has to ask God to forgive them and ask you to forgive them in order to receive the peace that you're going to receive. But if you can't forgive that person, if you're going to hate that person, well, the Bible says you reap what you sow, And if you sow hate, you're going to get hate back. If you sow anger, you're going to get anger back. And that anger is not just going to be a part of you. It's going to be a part of your family because you're angry. But it's going to affect your family. It's going to affect your community. It's going to affect your church. Just like racism affected everything. I mean, so forgiveness is a healing process. When you forgive somebody, you can begin to heal. And so since I forgave Dylan, as soon as I forgave Dylan, immediately, I mean, it was just like everything left my body. I could feel it leaving and wasn't sure what was going on until I was just emptied. I felt light as a feather. I realized that it was the anger and the hate, the way I felt about my wife, the loss, I mean, the sadness, everything was just gone, and I received a peace like none other. I preached about peace, that peace that passes all understanding. I preached about that to my congregation. I don't know how many times in a sermon. I thought I had it, but I didn't have it until then because I actually felt it. And I have that same peace right now that sustains me, that enables me to move forward in my life, that enables my children to move forward in their lives. And it's done a lot for the community of Charleston. It has enabled the community of Charleston to come together.
And that's what I find interesting, because you keep saying that the forgiveness is for you, that it wasn't an act of being a coward. It was actually an act of healing for yourself.
An act of healing, yeah. I mean, there's nothing cowardice about forgiving somebody. I mean, the world, that's what you call worldly forgiveness, because, worldly forgiveness, people think that's what it is, it's a cowardly act.
They say it would be, you got to get vengeance.
Yeah. In order to receive peace, I've got to get vengeance. In order to feel satisfied about what this I got to get this person back. Just to feel comfortable that I got this person and know that they didn't get away. Because a lot of people think that I dismiss or condone the crime. It's like, oh, you just let Dylan go free. No, I didn't let Dylan go free. Dylan is in jail, okay? And Dylan got what he was supposed to get because of the crime he committed. And I made that known to him, and I wrote to him that he was responsible for what he did, and that the time he's serving is the time he should get and some more for what he had done. So I'm not saying let him go free. I'm just saying let me be free. Not Dylan, but let me be free. I'm not letting him off the hook. I'm letting myself off the hook. That's what people just don't really understand, because as long as, if we had done this differently, Charleston would have been burning like any other city. We would have been walking around hating on people. I mean, we would have it'd have been worse. It would have been just like he wanted. He would have been in control of the situation because that's what he wanted. He wanted a race war. Well, it would have been a race war. And we continued to hate him. We continued to try to take revenge on somebody else because they're white, and not Dylan. And so doing the opposite, which was forgiveness, I'm glad God intervened, because at first I didn't want to go to the bond hearing. I had to kind of be coached to go there.
Yeah, your kids.
Yeah, and because I didn't find a reason for going, because I was an agent for 27 years. I took many people to bond hearings, and I'm like, why go? He gets his bond set, he goes back to his cell. But see, God had another purpose, and that purpose was for me to be free. you know, for me to just be free of everything, and so that I can move on in my life.
Well, and so talk about that a little bit, because I know that what's happening in this country right now with there are a lot of debates and arguments on issues of race and Black Lives Matter and the NFL protests, that there are issues of police brutality, over policing, and then also issues of just urban crime and violence in predominantly Black areas. And what you're saying is that the answer is not more violence. And how would we get that message across, to the country?
Well, first of all, especially when you're dealing with black on, with policemen and just the way they do treat black young men, they shoot them for no reason, they hit them for no reason, then they say I'm sorry afterwards, and yeah, that could be kind of hard to take, especially if, your mother, your son is gone, father's daughter's gone. Yeah, that can be hard for a parent to take, very hard. But they have to trust God, and I'm not saying whether they're Christian or not a Christian, and I'm just saying you have to trust God. You have to go to Him, and ask Him to help you to resolve this issue, because like right now, I'm mad. I'm angry. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to do what I have to do, to get back at these people for what they did to my son or my daughter or whoever, or what they did to me. I'm mad about it. But then, the Bible says you reap what you sow. In other words, violence brings more violence. Hate brings more hate. You bring more danger to your life. It's like going out there committing another crime, okay, And then it's like you being shot, you being killed. Now you not only have you lost a son or daughter, but now you're gone. So what does that solve? When you can go to the Lord, okay? It can be very hard to do that, okay? And say, hey, look, I need you to help me. I hate this person. I want to kill him, but I know it's not going to do me any good to put me in more trouble, make my life miserable, but I need you to help me. I need you to help me to forgive this person. First of all, I need you to help God to forgive me for feeling the way I do. And then I need you to help me to forgive this person. And guess what? 100%, He will, because that's what He wants you to do.
And what about for people who maybe they don't believe in God, or maybe
God.
they, they're angry and they don't.
Yeah.
What would you say to them? Because a lot of, especially younger people, are not interested in God.
They're not interested in God.
So what would you say to them?
What I can say to them is this. I'll be very frank about this. If you're not interested in God, you need to get interested in God, because you're not going to be able to do it. You're not going to be able to forgive that person. You're not going to be able to have the kind of life you're looking for by taking revenge, okay? By hating this person, by being angry at this person. All that stuff is going to come back at you. It's going to make your life, because think about it. The person who did you harm, okay? No longer in your sight, okay? Whatever they did to you may not have caused them to be arrested. It was just something they did, and they're walking life happy, living life large. They're not thinking about you. They don't even know you're mad at them or angry at them. So who are you really angry at? I've had young people who don't know their parents, mostly, and a lot of black young men who have fathers who just walked away. And they're literally, I've dealt with young kids for 47. They're literally walking around angry.
And a lot of them turn to gangs.
Yeah,
they want that big brother figure.
They want that big brother. Yeah, they looking for love, but I'm telling you, you're looking for it all the wrong places. If you don't believe in God, you need to believe in God.
Well, again, you just said looking for love in all the wrong places. And the Bible does say that God is love. So even if you're not into the word God, I think you could be into the word love.
Yeah, you can find love by getting into God. That's where you're going to find it. If anybody's going to help you, He's going to be the one to help you. I mean, I can sit here all day and give you all these worldly examples of how to get over your anger and your hate, but it's not going to work. Okay, it's not going to work. I can tell you to find yourself a friend. The friend you find may be the one that very well influence you to
so let me challenge you on this finding God, because I think you look at especially younger people, so millennials today are more secular than when their parents were, our age, and their grandparents were our age. So younger people are more skeptical of church. So
Yeah.
talk about the difference between God and church, because I think that that's
Oh,
a problem for a lot of people too.
Well, church is composed of people. People like me, people like Dylan, people like who've done you some harm. You can go to church, you can find them in there every day, and but those are people, those are people who say they gave their lives to the Lord, and well, they mean, they may not be exemplifying Christ, so you can't really look at them because they're going to church and say, oh, that's how people act who love God. That's how God treat people who love Him. No, God and church are two different things. Okay, God is an entity all by Himself. He's somebody who loves you, somebody who cares about you, somebody who sent His Son Jesus to die on the cross so that you can be relieved of these burdens that you're carrying. These burdens of hate and anger because you're mad at what happened in your life. You're mad at what somebody did to you. Well, that's why He died on the cross for you. He loved you so much, knowing you were going to encounter these things, so that you can have somebody like Him to come to, somebody you can give your life to, so He can take full control, just like He did mine. I'm a pastor of a church, okay, and I grew up in a church, but that had nothing to do with my relationship with the Lord. My relationship with the Lord was me getting to know Him and Him getting to know me trusting Him with my life. And then I came to this point in this tragedy where I really had to trust Him. I really had to give Him control to let Him do whatever He's going to do to make my life better. And He did. And not only did He do it, but He invited me. It wasn't like I said, okay, God, I'm coming to you. I need to forgive Dylan. No, He intervened and He took control and He put me in a position where I forgave Dylan so that I could receive that peace. And He can do the same thing for you. That's the difference between God and church. Church are full of people who want God, who want God's love, who give their life to the Lord, but doesn't mean that they're living like God wants them to live. God totally loves you, no matter whether you go to church or not. Even if you never go to a church, God still loves you. Just give your life to Him. Let Him have control. Okay, and everything that you're trying to work yourself through, He'll work it through for you because He loves you. He loves you more than a gang member loves you. He loves you more than your mom or dad loves you, the one who left, the one who's still there. He has a love for you like none other.
All right. Well, folks, make sure you check out the book. It's called Called to Forgive by Pastor Anthony Thompson. Pastor, any parting last words for our Bold TV audience?
Yes, I would like people to know this. We all carry burdens, okay? And most of the burdens we carry are because of what people did to us. I mean, bad things, physical abuse, sexual abuse, slander your name, whatever, little small things. And we try to get back, and we make the burden bigger, because every burden is a sin. In other words, every burden is something wrong, okay? But if you can just learn to forgive, find yourself in a position where you can forgive that person, that burden will be relieved by the same God I told you that loves you. You go to Him and say, Lord, forgive me and help me to forgive the person who offended me. And don't if you never tried it, don't doubt it. Try it, try it, and then you'll find out whether it works or not. But until you try, you will never know. But when you do try, I'm guarantee you will receive the peace you need, the peace you're looking for.
All right. Well, we appreciate your story of how you found peace, and make sure that you all check it out, Called to Forgive. Thanks for watching Bold TV.